My 8-year-old daughter, Melody, stood there in her candy cane pajamas, holding up her pink tablet like it was some kind of weapon. Her small voice cut through the chaos like a knife through butter. "Aunt Jessica, should I show everyone what you did to Grandma's jewelry?" The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on my mother's thick carpet. My sister-in-law, Jessica, froze mid-reach, her hand still extended toward the last unopened present under the tree. Her face went from flushed red to ghost white in about 2 seconds flat. "What are you talking about, you little brat?" Jessica's voice cracked, but she tried to sound threatening. Melody didn't even flinch. She just stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of what had been our Christmas morning. Broken pieces of her chemistry set scattered across the floor. Her little brother Tyler's wooden train set smashed to splinters, torn wrapping paper everywhere like confetti at the world's saddest party. "I have a video," Melody said simply, her finger hovering over the screen. "Let me back up and tell you how we got here, because 20 minutes ago, this was supposed to be the perfect Christmas morning. I'm Amanda, 34 years old, a dental hygienist who thought the hardest part of my life was behind me. 2 years after my divorce, I'd finally gotten my feet back under me. My kids were adjusting. We'd moved back to my hometown in Ohio to be near my parents, Patricia and Robert, who'd been our rock through everything. My brother Garrett had married Jessica 6 years ago. She was one of those women who always looked put together, even at 7 a.m. on Christmas morning. Usually, anyway. But that day, she'd shown up looking like she'd been up all night, her usually perfect blonde hair stringy, her designer sweater wrinkled, and I could smell wine on her breath from across the room. Tyler, my 5-year-old tornado of energy, had been bouncing off the walls since 5 a.m. Mommy, can we open presents now? Please, please." He'd asked that question approximately 47 times already. Melody, my oldest, had been sitting cross-legged by the tree, her tablet out because she wanted to record the gift opening to show her dad later. Their father lived in Seattle now, and this was our first Christmas without him. She'd gotten so responsible since the divorce. Sometimes I forgot she was only 8. My mother, Patricia, had been bustling around in her Christmas apron, the one with the reindeer on it that she'd worn every December 25th for the past 20 years. "Just wait for Uncle Garrett and Aunt Jessica, sweetheart," she'd told Tyler for the dozenth time. My father, Robert, had already claimed his spot in his ancient recliner, pretending to read the newspaper but actually dozing off behind it. Classic dad move. He always said he was just resting his eyes during family gatherings. When Garrett and Jessica had walked through that door at 8 a.m. sharp, I knew something was wrong. Garrett looked exhausted, defeated even. He kept shooting apologetic glances my way like he was trying to warn me about something. Jessica headed straight for the couch without saying hello to anyone, not even the kids. "Merry Christmas, Aunt Jessica." Tyler had run over to her with his arms out for a hug. She'd pushed him away. Not roughly, but firmly enough that he'd looked confused and hurt. "Not now, Tyler." That should have been my first real warning sign. Jessica had always been a bit cold, a bit judgmental about my divorce and my moving back home, but she'd never been mean to the kids before. Never. My mother and I had exchanged glances. You know that look mothers and daughters share when they both sense trouble brewing but don't want to make a scene? That exact look. "Why don't we start with the gifts?" my mother suggested, her voice artificially bright. "The children have been so patient." And that's when everything went straight to hell. But standing there now, watching my 8-year-old daughter face down a grown woman who'd just destroyed Christmas, I realized I'd been wrong about which kid got the responsible gene. Melody wasn't just responsible. She was brave. Braver than any of the adults in that room who'd stood there frozen while Jessica destroyed everything my babies had been looking forward to for weeks. "Go ahead, Melody," I heard myself say, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "Show everyone what Aunt Jessica did." The room held its breath, and Christmas morning would never be the same again. The smell of cinnamon rolls filled my parents' house that Christmas morning, the same recipe my mother had been making since I was Melody's age. It was barely 7 a.m., but Tyler had already been awake for 2 hours, practically vibrating with excitement next to the tree. He'd worn his special Christmas pajamas to bed, the ones with little locomotives all over them, and refused to change out of them even though he'd spilled hot chocolate down the front already. "Mommy, look, Santa ate the cookies." Tyler pointed at the plate we'd left out where only crumbs remained. I'd nibbled those cookies at midnight, standing alone in my parents' kitchen, finally allowing myself a moment to feel proud of how far we'd come. 2 years ago, my world had fallen apart. My ex-husband Daniel had announced he was leaving, taking a job in Seattle and starting over with someone from his office. The divorce was swift and surgical, like ripping off a bandage if that bandage had been attached to your soul. Moving back to my hometown of Riverside, Ohio, felt like defeat at first. Here I was, 34 years old, cramming back into my childhood home with 2 kids and a mountain of debt from lawyer fees. But my parents had been incredible. My mother, Patricia, a retired school nurse, had transformed my old bedroom into a space for Melody, complete with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, because my daughter wanted to be a scientist. My father, Robert, who owned a small hardware store downtown, had built a custom bed for Tyler shaped like a train engine. They never made me feel like a burden, not once. "Amanda, honey, can you help me with the fruit salad?" my mother called from the kitchen. She was already dressed in her good Christmas sweater, the green one with a sequined Christmas tree that she thought was festive, but Melody privately called Grandma's disco shirt. I found her dicing apples with surgical precision, the kitchen counter covered in bowls of fresh fruit. "Jessica called Garrett 3 times this morning already," she said quietly, not looking up from her cutting board. "Something's going on with them." "What kind of something?" I asked, stealing a strawberry from the bowl. "The kind where she accused him of loving your children more than trying for their own." My mother's mouth formed a tight line. "Patricia Henderson saw her at Wine and Spirits yesterday buying enough bottles for a party, but they're not hosting anything." I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach. Jessica had always been complicated. When Garrett first introduced her 6 years ago, she'd seemed perfect for him. She worked as an office manager at a law firm, drove a pristine white SUV, and had her life together in all the ways I apparently didn't. But after their wedding, something shifted. Every family gathering became a subtle competition I hadn't signed up for. "Maybe we should postpone the gift opening," I suggested, watching Tyler shake a present for the 100th time. "Absolutely not." My mother's voice was firm. "Those children have been through enough. They deserve a normal Christmas." Normal. I'd been chasing normal for 2 years now, working double shifts at Dr. Morrison's dental practice to save money, helping Melody with homework at the kitchen table while making dinner, reading Thomas the Tank Engine to Tyler every night, doing all the voices even when I was exhausted. Normal was the goal, even if I had no idea what it looked like anymore. My father shuffled into the kitchen, already wearing his comfortable Christmas cardigan that had seen better decades. "Coffee ready yet?" He kissed my mother's cheek, a gesture so casual and loving it made my chest ache. 37 years they'd been married. I'd managed 7. "Mom, I set up my tablet to record." Melody bounced into the kitchen, her dark hair still messy from sleep. She'd gotten my stubborn cowlick, the one that never laid flat no matter how much you brushed it. "I want to show Dad how happy we are on Christmas." That was Melody, always trying to make everyone feel better. She'd been doing it since the divorce, these little gestures to prove we were okay, that I was doing a good job, that she wasn't damaged by the split. 8 years old and already carrying weight that wasn't hers to bear. The doorbell rang at exactly 8 a.m. Garrett was nothing if not punctual. Through the frosted glass, I could see 2 figures, one standing straight, one swaying slightly. "They're here!" Tyler shrieked, racing to the door. My mother wiped her hands on her apron. "Remember, we're family. Whatever's happening with them, we handle it with grace." Grace. I wondered if grace was enough for whatever storm was about to walk through that door. Garrett entered first, looking like he'd aged 5 years since Thanksgiving. His usually neat brown hair was uncombed, and there were dark circles under his eyes that told a story of sleepless nights. Jessica pushed past him without a word, her designer heels clicking against my parents' hardwood floor like angry little hammers. "Merry Christmas, everyone," Garrett said weakly, setting down a bag of presents that looked hastily wrapped. Some of the corners were torn, tape applied crooked, like they'd been wrapped in a car or after an argument. Tyler ran to his uncle, wrapping his small arms around Garrett's legs. "Uncle Garrett, come see. Santa brought me so many presents." "That's great, buddy." Garrett ruffled Tyler's hair, but his eyes were tracking Jessica as she dropped onto the couch, still wearing her coat. My mother tried to salvage the moment. "Jessica, dear, can I get you some coffee? I just made a fresh pot." "Coffee?" Jessica laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. It was sharp, brittle. "Patricia, it's Christmas. Don't you have anything stronger?" "It's 8 in the morning," my father said carefully from his recliner. "So?" Jessica's eyes flashed. "It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right, Robert? Or does that rule not apply to perfect families?" Melody had quietly positioned herself on the floor near the tree, her tablet ready. She looked up at me with those big brown eyes, asking without words if we were still doing presents. I nodded and sat down beside her. "Why don't we start opening gifts?" I suggested, trying to steer us back to normal. "Tyler's been waiting so patiently." "Patiently," Jessica mimicked, her voice dripping with something ugly. "Everything's always about the kids, isn't it? Poor little Tyler. Poor little Melody. Poor divorced Amanda and her poor little babies." "Jessica," Garrett's voice held a warning. "What? I'm just saying what everyone thinks." She stood up abruptly, swaying slightly. "You all sit here, pretending everything's wonderful while some of us are drowning." Tyler had started unwrapping his first gift, careful not to tear the paper because I'd taught him we could reuse it. Inside was the wooden train set I'd saved 3 months to afford. His face lit up like someone had handed him the moon. "A real wooden train! Mommy, look! It has a caboose and everything." That's when Jessica snapped. I mean, really, truly snapped. She crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed the box from Tyler's hands. "You know what? No, this is ridiculous." Her words slurred slightly. "Why should you get everything you want?" "Jessica, give that back," I said, standing up. "Or what? You'll cry? Run back to Mommy and Daddy like you always do?" She held the train set above her head. "Your kids don't deserve happiness, Amanda, not when the rest of us are suffering." "What are you talking about?" My mother had come in from the kitchen, dish towel still in her hands. 3 IVF cycles, Patricia. 3 failures. $30,000. And what do I get? Nothing. But Amanda? She pops out 2 kids with a man who didn't even want them enough to stick around, and everyone treats her like a hero. "That's enough," Garrett said, moving toward her. But Jessica was already in motion. She slammed the wooden train set against the coffee table. The box exploded open, pieces of track splintering, the carefully painted engine cracking down the middle. Tyler screamed, not just crying, but truly screaming, the kind of sound that tears a mother's heart in half. "There's your precious train," Jessica spat. Melody had grabbed her chemistry set, holding it protectively against her chest, but Jessica was faster. She yanked it away and in one violent motion hurled it against the wall. Glass beakers shattered. The plastic microscope cracked. Colored crystals meant for growing experiments scattered across the carpet like toxic snow. "Stop it!" I lunged for her, but she dodged me with drunk agility. 20 years from now, they won't even remember these toys," Jessica said, grabbing more presents from under the tree. "But I'll remember. I'll remember sitting in that fertility clinic, looking at photos of other people's children, wondering why God hates me so much." She destroyed them methodically, a dollhouse I'd bought secondhand and restored myself, crushed under her heel. Books torn down the spine, a paint set scattered, colors bleeding into my mother's cream carpet. A puzzle of the solar system Melody had specifically asked for, pieces flung like confetti. My parents stood frozen. Garrett seemed paralyzed. And I held my sobbing children, Tyler's face buried in my shoulder, Melody silent but shaking. The Christmas music still played softly from the radio, Silent Night, providing a surreal soundtrack to the destruction. "They're just things," Jessica panted, surrounded by the wreckage. "Maybe now they'll understand that life doesn't give you what you want just because you're good." I knelt on the floor, pulling both my children against me. Tyler's whole body shook with sobs, his small fingers clutching my sweater so tight his knuckles were white. Melody pressed against my other side, her tablet still recording, held like a lifeline in her trembling hands. The destroyed gifts lay scattered around us like casualties of war, and for a moment I felt rage so pure it could have burned the whole house down. But then Tyler looked up at me, his face red and wet, and whispered, "Why does Aunt Jessica hate us, Mommy?" That question cut through my anger like cold water. I looked at Jessica, standing there panting, her expensive coat askew, mascara running down her cheeks, and I saw it clearly. This wasn't about my children. This was about her pain, so deep and poisonous it had to spill out and contaminate everything it touched. "She doesn't hate you, baby," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Aunt Jessica is hurting, and sometimes when people hurt, they do terrible things. But that's not your fault. It's never your fault." "Don't you dare make excuses for me," Jessica snarled. "I don't need your pity, Amanda. Perfect Amanda, who always says the right thing, does the right thing. Even now, you're trying to be the bigger person." I stood up slowly, keeping my children behind me. "You're right, Jessica. I'm not perfect. I failed at my marriage. I had to move back in with my parents. I worked double shifts just to make ends meet. But you know what? My children didn't choose any of that. They didn't choose to be born, didn't choose their father leaving, and they certainly didn't choose to be the target of your misplaced rage." "Misplaced?" Jessica laughed bitterly. "Every family gathering, it's about them. Their grades, their cute stories, their futures. No one asks about my empty nursery anymore. No one mentions the fertility treatments. You all just pretend like I'm not dying inside while you celebrate your perfect grandchildren." My mother finally spoke, her voice shaking. "We didn't know you were struggling this much, Jessica. You never told us about the IVF failures." "Because you never asked," Jessica shouted. "Too busy planning birthday parties and school plays and Christmas mornings for Amanda's kids." Garrett finally moved, walking toward his wife with careful steps like approaching a wounded animal. "Jess, this isn't you. This is the alcohol and the hormones and the grief talking." "Don't touch me," she warned, backing away. "You're just as bad. You told me we should consider adoption, like our biological children don't matter, like we should just give up." That's when Melody did something extraordinary. She walked right past me, past the broken glass and torn paper, and stood directly in front of Jessica. My heart jumped to my throat, but something in my daughter's bearing made me stay still. "I'm sorry you can't have babies, Aunt Jessica," Melody said, her voice clear and steady. "That must make you really sad. When I'm really sad, I sometimes want to break things too." Jessica stared down at her, momentarily stunned out of her rage. Melody continued, "But my mom taught me that breaking other people's things doesn't fix what's broken inside us. It just makes more broken things." "What would you know about it?" Jessica's voice cracked. "You're 8 years old. You don't know anything about real loss." "I know my dad chose to leave us," Melody said simply. "I know he could have stayed but didn't want to. At least your babies didn't choose not to come. They just couldn't." The room went absolutely silent. Even Tyler stopped crying, watching his sister with awe. Jessica's face crumpled. For a second, I thought she might collapse or lash out again, but Melody wasn't done. "I was recording everything for my dad," she said, holding up her tablet. "I wanted to show him how happy we were so he wouldn't worry about us, but I've been recording other things too, secret things." "Melody," I said softly, not sure where this was going. She looked back at me with those old soul eyes. "Remember when you said we should always tell the truth, even when it's hard, even when it might make people mad?" I nodded, my heart racing. "Well, I have a truth about Aunt Jessica, from last month when we visited Grandma and she was napping." Melody turned back to Jessica, whose face had gone pale. "I was playing hide and seek in Grandma's room. I was in the closet with my tablet and I saw what you did." "You little spy," Jessica hissed, but there was fear in her voice now. "I wasn't spying," Melody said calmly. "I was just playing, but I saw you take something that wasn't yours, and Mom says stealing is wrong even when we're sad, even when we think we deserve something." My mother stepped forward. "What did she take, sweetheart?" Melody looked at Jessica one more time. "Should I show them, Aunt Jessica? Or do you want to tell them yourself?" Jessica lunged forward, trying to grab the tablet from Melody's hands, but Garrett caught her arm and held her back. "What is she talking about, Jess? What did you do?" "Nothing. She's making it up. Kids make things up all the time." Jessica struggled against Garrett's grip, but he held firm. Melody stepped back, keeping the tablet close to her chest. "I'm not making it up. I have the video right here, November 15th, 2:43 in the afternoon." My mother's hand flew to her throat. "That was the day we all came over for Dad's birthday planning. I took a nap because I had a headache." "What video?" My father stood up from his recliner, suddenly fully alert. "Melody, what exactly did you see?" Melody looked at me and I nodded encouragingly. Whatever this was, we needed to know. She turned the tablet around and pressed play. The video was shaky at first, filmed through the slats of my mother's closet door. You could hear Melody's quiet breathing as she hid. Then Jessica entered the frame, moving straight to my mother's jewelry box on the dresser. The audio was crystal clear. "These should have been mine." Jessica's voice came from the tablet, bitter and cold. "I'm the one who comes here every week. I'm the one who listens to Patricia's stories about her mother. I'm the one who deserves them." We watched Jessica open the antique wooden box and pull out a velvet pouch. She emptied it into her palm, and even in the grainy video, the emerald ring and matching earrings caught the light. My grandmother's wedding set, worth at least $15,000, pieces that had been in our family for 4 generations. "You took Mom's emeralds?" Garrett's voice was hollow, disbelieving. "Those were her mother's. Those were supposed to go to Amanda and then Melody someday." My mother sank into the nearest chair. "I thought I'd misplaced them. I've been sick about it for weeks, thinking I was getting forgetful, that maybe early dementia was setting in." The video continued. Jessica on screen stuffed the jewelry into her purse, then deliberately knocked over other items in the jewelry box. There. Now she'll think she just misplaced them somewhere else. Probably blame it on her age. Perfect Patricia isn't so perfect after all. Melody paused the video. "There's more. Should I keep going?" "More?" I asked, stunned. "She made a phone call right after," Melody said quietly, "to someone named Derek about selling them." Jessica's face had gone from pale to gray. "You don't understand. We needed the money. The IVF treatments bankrupted us. Garrett wouldn't take out another loan, and your parents wouldn't help because they were too busy saving for college funds for your kids. We would have helped you," my father's voice boomed, something I rarely heard. "All you had to do was ask. We didn't even know you were doing IVF." "Check her purse," Melody said softly. "She brought them today. I saw her looking at them in the car when Uncle Garrett was getting presents from the trunk. She was going to do something with them." "No." Jessica tried to pull away, but Garrett had already grabbed her designer bag from the couch. He dumped its contents onto the coffee table. Among the makeup and receipts and prescription bottles, wrapped in white tissue paper, were my grandmother's emeralds. My mother stood up slowly, walked over to the table, and picked up the ring with shaking hands. My mother wore this ring for 53 years. She wore it while she raised 5 children during the Depression. She wore it when she buried my father. She wore it until the day she died, and then she gave it to me to give to Amanda. "I needed it more," Jessica screamed. "For my children. The children I'll never have because God is cruel and unfair and gives babies to people who don't deserve them." "Stop it," Garrett said quietly, but his voice carried more weight than any shout. "Just stop, Jessica. This isn't about God or fairness or who deserves what. This is about you becoming someone I don't recognize, someone who would steal from family, someone who would destroy children's Christmas presents, someone who would traumatize kids because you're in pain." Tyler had crept forward, still sniffling, and picked up a broken piece of his train. "Can we fix it, Mommy?" "We'll try, baby," I said, my voice thick with emotion. Jessica looked around the room at all of us, her expression shifting from rage to something else entirely. Shame, maybe, or just exhaustion. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "I can't pretend to be happy for everyone else. I can't watch other people get everything I want." "Then you need help," my mother said firmly, surprising everyone with the steel in her voice. "Professional help. Because stealing from family and destroying children's gifts isn't pain, Jessica. It's cruelty, and we won't allow cruelty in this house, not even from family." Garrett released Jessica's arm and stepped away from her. "We're leaving, now." He looked at my parents, then at me, his eyes full of apologies he couldn't voice. "I'll pay for everything, the gifts, the carpet cleaning, everything. And Jess will be getting help, whether she wants it or not." Jessica stood there for a moment, surrounded by the destruction she'd caused, holding nothing but her empty designer purse. The woman who'd walked in, acting superior and righteous, now looked small and pitiful, but I couldn't find sympathy for her, not yet. Maybe someday, but not while my children's tears were still fresh. "The emeralds stay here," Garrett said firmly. "And Jessica, you're going to write a letter apologizing to everyone, especially to Melody and Tyler. Not today, not tomorrow, but when you're sober and getting help." Garrett practically carried Jessica out to their car, her designer heels scraping against the porch steps as she stumbled. Through the window, I watched him buckle her into the passenger seat like she was a child. He sat in the driver's seat for a full minute before starting the engine, his head resting on the steering wheel. When he finally drove away, none of us moved for what felt like forever. Then Tyler tugged on my pajama sleeve. "Mommy, is Christmas ruined?" Before I could answer, my father did something I'd never seen him do in my entire life. He got down on his hands and knees and started picking up the broken pieces of the train set. "Nothing's ruined that can't be fixed, buddy. Come here. Let's see what we can save." My mother disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a broom, dustpan, and the grocery bag she used for her coupons. She dumped out the coupons and started collecting the scattered chemistry set pieces. "Some of these beakers aren't even broken, Melody. And look, the instruction manual is perfectly fine." That's when the doorbell rang. We all froze, wondering if Jessica had come back for round 2. But it was Mrs. Henderson from next door, holding a casserole dish and peering through the glass with concern. "Patricia, dear, is everything all right?" We heard some commotion and then saw Garrett speeding off. My mother opened the door, and Mrs. Henderson's eyes widened at the destruction visible behind her. Within an hour, word had spread through our small Ohio town the way only small-town news can spread. By noon, our house had become a parade of neighbors and friends. Mr. Johnson, from 3 houses down, arrived with a wooden train set his grandson had outgrown. "It's not brand new, but it's got twice as many pieces as the one that got broken," he said, ruffling Tyler's hair. Dr. Morrison, my boss from the dental practice, showed up with her daughter's old chemistry set, plus some real lab equipment from her husband's college laboratory. "Melody might be ready for something more advanced anyway," she said with a wink. The Patel family brought homemade cookies and 3 board games. The Nguyens delivered a box of art supplies. Coach Williams from Tyler's t-ball team arrived with a baseball glove that mysteriously appeared in his garage. By 3 o'clock, my children had more presents than they'd started with. Tyler had built an entire train city on the living room floor with Mr. Johnson's help. Melody was using real micropipettes to conduct actual experiments under Dr. Morrison's supervision. Garrett returned alone that evening, looking exhausted but determined. I took Jessica to her sister's in Columbus. She's checking into a treatment facility tomorrow. Rehab and psychiatric care. Our insurance covers 90 days. He pulled out his checkbook, but my father stopped him. "Keep your money, son. You're going to need it." "I'm filing for separation," Garrett continued, his voice steady but sad. "This isn't the first time something like this has happened, just the worst. Last month, she threw her sister's baby shower cake against the wall. 3 weeks ago, she destroyed all the photos from our wedding because there were kids in them. I kept making excuses, saying it was the fertility treatments, the hormones, the stress. But it's more than that." My mother handed him the emeralds. "These belong in the family. When you find someone who understands what family really means, give them to her." He shook his head. "They belong to Amanda, and then to Melody. That's how it should be." 3 months later, a letter arrived addressed to my children. Jessica's handwriting, neat and careful. "Dear Melody and Tyler, I'm sorry I broke your Christmas presents. I was sick in my heart and mind, and I took my pain out on you. That was wrong. I'm getting help now, learning how to handle my sadness without hurting others. Melody, you were brave to tell the truth. That took courage most adults don't have. Tyler, I hope your trains bring you joy. I'm sorry I tried to take that away. Aunt Jessica." She included a check for $500 and a photo of herself at the treatment facility, looking healthier than I'd seen her in years. Melody asked if she could write back. I said yes. Her letter was simple. "Dear Aunt Jessica, I forgive you. People make mistakes when they're sad. I hope you feel better. Maybe someday we can have a good Christmas together. Love, Melody." That broken Christmas became the one we talked about most, not because of the destruction, but because of what came after, the way our community wrapped around us, the way truth spoken by an 8-year-old changed everything, the way broken things led to healing. Garrett did find love again 2 years later, with a widow named Ruth who had 3 kids of her own. The Emeralds looked beautiful at their wedding, and Melody stood as a junior bridesmaid, proud and tall, wearing my grandmother's pearls. Sometimes the worst moments become the most important ones. That Christmas taught us that family isn't about perfect holidays or expensive gifts. It's about standing together when someone tries to tear you apart. It's about finding courage to speak truth, even when your voice shakes. It's about choosing forgiveness, not because people deserve it, but because holding on to anger is like grabbing broken glass and expecting someone else to bleed. Tyler still has that patched-together train set. He's 12 now and could have any toy he wants, but he keeps those glued and taped pieces on his shelf. It reminds me that broken things can still work, he told me last week. They just work different. And Melody? She's 16, headed for early admission to MIT. She still has that tablet video saved in her cloud storage, not as evidence or ammunition, but as a reminder that sometimes the smallest voices speak the loudest truths, and that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing while your hands shake and your heart pounds. That Christmas morning, when my sister-in-law tried to destroy our happiness, she actually gave us something precious. Proof that joy isn't found in things that can be broken, but in the people who help you pick up the pieces. If you've made it this far in our story, thank you for listening. Like this video, if it touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that broken things can be beautiful, and subscribe to our channel for more stories about real families finding hope in unexpected places. Remember, your worst day doesn't have to be your last day, and sometimes the most damaged people teach us the most valuable lessons about grace.